A diminutive dwelling is visible within the woodland expanse. Inside, an individual is engaged in culinary preparations, tossing asparagus into a skillet, monitoring the rice, and inspecting the lamb rib within the oven. Maddie peruses instructions for a sauce, subsequently tasting it with evident distaste. A notification arrives from a neighbor requesting a visit, which Maddie readily accepts. Afterward, she summons her feline companion for dinner and attends to its feeding. As her neighbor approaches the dwelling, Maddie emerges to greet her. Sarah immediately discloses having read Maddie's book and initiates a conversation in sign language, despite Maddie's ability to lip read. Sarah insists on practicing her signing skills, and Maddie acquiesces. Inquiring about Sarah's opinion of the book, Maddie learns that Sarah adored it, even attempting to predict the ending, albeit unsuccessfully. Maddie attributes her ability to conceive diverse endings to her writer's mind, which plays out potential outcomes like a cinematic reel. She confesses to the difficulty of silencing the internal dialogue. Curious, Sarah asks about the nature of Maddie's inner voice, to which Maddie reveals it resembles her mother's. Abruptly, a piercing alarm blares through the house. Rushing indoors, Maddie disarms the device while Sarah rescues the lamb from the oven. In the chaos, Maddie's cat slips away unnoticed. Sarah expresses surprise at the alarm's volume, but Maddie explains its necessity for her to perceive vibrations during sleep. Later, they relax on the porch, discussing the missing feline. Maddie reassures Sarah that her cat is self-sufficient and will return. Sarah suggests a food delivery, but Maddie declines due to work commitments. Before departing, Sarah practices her newly acquired sign language. Afterward, Maddie receives a thoughtful message from Craig, which she promptly deletes. As night falls, she immerses herself in her novel, pondering the optimal conclusion. A creative block emerges, prompting her to initiate a FaceTime call with Craig. She terminates the call before it can initiate. He persists in his attempts to contact her, but she remains unresponsive on both her laptop and phone. Maddie commences cleaning the kitchen, the aftermath of her culinary endeavors. Suddenly, Sarah frantically pounds on the door. Hoping to capture Maddie's attention, Sarah tragically falls victim to an arrow, succumbing to her injuries in front of the window. Unwittingly, Maddie remains oblivious to the horrifying scene. The killer, observing from a distance, resorts to knocking on the window to gauge Maddie's awareness. Upon realizing her obliviousness, he proceeds to dispose of the body. Craig's persistent calls go unanswered as Maddie retreats to her writing, struggling to overcome her creative impasse. Unbeknownst to her, the killer infiltrates her home and approaches her. Lost in thought about her writer's block, she remains unaware of his presence. A FaceTime call from her sister interrupts the eerie silence, forcing the killer to retreat from the camera's view. They engage in a brief conversation about her novel, and Maddie confides in her sister about Craig. Encouraged to re-enter the dating scene, Maddie declines the suggestion. Her sister urges Maddie to return to the city and abandon her solitary existence. The killer seizes Maddie's phone from the counter, a move captured by her sister's camera. Maddie dismisses the intrusion, attributing it to her curious cat, but insists on searching for the elusive feline. After a brief farewell, she attempts to lure the cat with the tantalizing sound of food. The cat remains elusive, prompting Maddie to scour the house. Failing to locate the pet upstairs, she ventures outside, calling out once more before leaving the door ajar. Returning to her writing, Maddie is startled by an incoming picture message from her own phone. The images depict her search for the cat, culminating in the exact moment she views them on her computer. Fear grips her as she cautiously approaches the door. There, on her porch, stands the menacing killer, brandishing her stolen phone. With a swift movement, she slams the door shut, narrowly escaping his grasp. The killer methodically attempts to breach every door, but, frustrated by his failure, he circumnavigates the house and nearly gains entry through an alternate route. Maddie turns to her computer to dial emergency services, only to find the power cut. Desperate, she tries to connect to Sarah's network, but lacks the necessary password. The intruder, intent on tormenting her, disappears into the night. Venturing cautiously to the door, Maddie discovers the slashed tires of her car and the killer's hidden form in the nearby woods. She resorts to writing a message on the glass door, illuminating it with a flashlight. The killer, intrigued, removes his mask and inquires about her ability to lip read. He reveals his knowledge of her solitary existence and the absence of a protective partner. He ominously warns her of his unrestricted access to her home, promising to return only when she yearns for death. She acknowledges his threat with a somber nod. Before departing, he leaves her with a chilling promise of future torment. Maddie, driven by a surge of fear and determination, retrieves a knife and a hammer from the kitchen. Armed with these makeshift weapons, she returns to the living room, meticulously checking every corner. She retreats to her bedroom, fortifying the door and obscuring the windows with curtains. Peering through the window, she fails to spot the intruder. A sudden shadow falls across the glass, followed by insistent knocks. As she investigates, she makes a horrifying discovery: the killer is using Sarah's lifeless body to signal his presence. Overwhelmed by shock, Maddie relinquishes her weapons and returns to the living room, lost in thought. A glimmer of hope sparks within her as she recalls Sarah's habit of keeping her phone in her back pocket. Grabbing her car keys, she attempts to activate the alarm system through the window, but to no avail. Rushing outside, she quickly manages to trigger the alarm. The intruder, alerted by the piercing sound, approaches the car. Seizing the opportunity, Maddie dashes back to her room, frantically searching Sarah's pockets for her phone. The killer's silhouette looms at the window, forcing her to retreat and slam the window shut, trapping his fingers. In a swift, desperate move, she grabs the knife and inflicts a wound upon him. The injured man, bleeding profusely, tears a piece of Sarah's shirt to staunch the flow. Realizing the purpose of her frantic search, he taunts her by displaying her stolen phone. Maddie retreats to the living room, only to be met with another attempt to breach the window. Moments later, she catches a glimpse of him moving outside and quickly seeks cover. Peering through the glass door, he fails to spot her, but his keen instincts lead him to her hiding place. As she cautiously emerges from her hiding spot beneath the porch, she relies on the vibrations of his footsteps on the wooden floor to track his movements. The man, employing a cunning strategy, lures her out of hiding. As she flees, he unleashes a barrage of crossbow bolts, but his aim proves inaccurate. She retreats back into the house and secures the door. Ascending to the second floor, Maddie observes the intruder's activities from a safe distance. When he approaches the front door, she seizes the opportunity to exit through a rear window. Moving with stealth, she carefully descends the roof, her every move calculated to avoid detection. To divert his attention, she tosses her lit flashlight into the woods. As the man pursues the light source, she descends from the roof, only to be met with a barrage of arrows. Undeterred, she extracts the arrow from her leg and prepares for the inevitable confrontation. When he reaches the roof, she pushes him off and seizes his crossbow. Unfamiliar with the weapon, she fumbles with the loading mechanism, granting him precious moments to recover. With renewed determination, he scales the wall, aiming to reclaim his weapon. Just as he reaches the window, she manages to slip back inside, narrowly escaping his grasp. Maddie levels the crossbow at the intruder, forcing him to retreat. She retreats to the bathroom to tend to her wound, disinfecting it with alcohol and applying a makeshift bandage to stem the bleeding. Overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty, she weeps as she contemplates her next move. As she examines the crossbow, she notices distinctive markings. Attempting to load the weapon, she struggles to align the bow with the mechanism. Undeterred, she persists, unaware that the intruder is observing her through the bathroom window. Suddenly, a knock sounds at the front door. A man, seeking Sarah, remains unnoticed by Maddie but alerts the killer. The man, John, Sarah's boyfriend, discovers the ominous message on the door and prepares to call the police. Before he can act, the killer emerges, posing as a law enforcement officer. The killer demands that John surrender his phone, but John insists on his innocence and refuses to comply. John explains that his ID is in his wallet and offers to put down his phone to retrieve it. As he reaches for his wallet, the killer swiftly snatches it. After examining John's identification, the killer inquires about his residence. John nods in agreement as the man apologizes for the sudden intrusion. The intruder concocts a fabricated tale, claiming to have responded to a distress call and discovered the scene of chaos. He alleges that an unknown assailant, having fled the scene, knocked him unconscious and absconded with his firearm and radio. Emphasizing the urgency of the situation, he requests the use of John's phone to contact the sheriff's office. Though doubts linger in John's mind, the intruder reinforces his credibility by identifying himself as a rookie deputy. Gaining John's trust, he borrows the phone and feigns a call to his station. However, upon concluding the call, he discreetly pockets the phone, depriving John of its return. Engaging in casual conversation, the two men discuss Maddie's solitary nature. He notices the man's arm is wounded and inquires about it, prompting the man to fabricate a story that the attacker caused it. He demands his phone back, and as he hands it over, Sarah's earring slips from his pocket. John identifies it immediately. He begins questioning the man to determine if he can expose a falsehood. The man skillfully avoids all inquiries. Meanwhile, Maddie continues to struggle with drawing the bow, making no progress. John is still attempting to ascertain the man's identity but is increasingly convinced that he is not an officer. He mentions that Maddie has a key concealed in a planter at the foot of the stairs. As the man descends to investigate, John grabs a rock and approaches him while maintaining a conversation to keep him unaware of his intentions. Just as he finds the opportunity to strike him, Maddie starts banging on the window, and the man stabs John. John pursues him, but the man circles around until he tumbles to the ground. Maddie witnesses the entire scene unfold, and the man expresses gratitude to her for appearing at the opportune moment. He bends down toward John, but Annie leaps at him, tackling him and gripping him firmly. He urges Maddie to flee. As she exits through the back door, the man chases after her and strikes her on the head with a rock, killing her. This is merely the outcome of her escape playing out in Maddie's mind. Her inner voice warns her that she cannot flee. She is still within the house. John perishes before he has the chance to eliminate the man. Maddie continues to navigate through various scenarios and consequences of her predicament. She contemplates whether she could shoot him or venture outside to restore the power. She thinks about potential hiding spots in the house, such as the bathroom or the loft. Regardless of her choice, if he does not locate her, she could still bleed out. Outside the residence, she could conceal herself in the crawlspace, but he is aware that she has hidden there before. Time is slipping away as she begins to feel lightheaded, cold, and her vision starts to fade. Her inner voice warns her that he holds the upper hand, regardless of the circumstances. She cannot flee, she cannot conceal herself, and she cannot afford to wait. Suddenly, Maddie comes to the realization of what she must do to save herself: eliminate him. Meanwhile, the man rummages through John's pockets and discovers a pack of cigarettes. He approaches Maddie's car and retrieves the wrench. Perched on the vehicle, he lights a cigarette, deciding to enter the house shortly, allowing her to lose a bit more blood first. Abruptly, her cat appears. He crouches down to her, poised to strike, when Maddie fires at him with the crossbow. She retreats indoors, slamming the door behind her. The intruder, relentless in his pursuit, catches her hand, shattering the glass panel. Releasing her hand, she quickly secures the door. The man, undeterred, threatens to force his way in, his voice a chilling promise. Maddie, defiant in the face of danger, confronts him. Using her own blood as ink, she scrawls a message on the glass, a silent accusation: "Do it, coward." The intruder, oblivious to her defiance, moves towards the car to retrieve the wrench. Seizing the opportunity, Maddie swiftly types a message to her parents, a final goodbye. Seeking refuge, she hides in the bathroom, her consciousness fading. The intruder, undetected, enters through a window, his breath a chilling presence on her neck. Reacting instinctively, she dodges his knife and retaliates with a fatal blow. Staggering to the kitchen, she collapses to the floor, her vision blurring. The injured intruder limps towards her, intent on delivering the final blow. Just as he raises his weapon, she unleashes a burst of cleaning spray, blinding him. Grabbing the fire alarm, she sets it off, further disorienting him. Seizing the moment, she snatches the knife from his grasp. A fierce struggle ensues, both combatants locked in a desperate battle for survival. He nearly takes her life when she seizes the wide opener and ends his. She recovers her strength and retrieves her phone from his pocket. She dials 911 and then loses consciousness. Moments later, Maddie emerges from her home and settles on her porch. Her cat is beside her. The police eventually show up at the location. Be sure to subscribe and activate notifications to catch more videos like this. Thank you for watching.